Cardano morality. Is there such a thing? Are you aware that you may be able to make moral choices pertinent to blockchain? That's our discussion today on Crypto for Christians. I'm Alex. I'm a crypto enthusiast. Always glad to see everybody turning out to check out our videos. And of course, we're joined by Pastor Rick. How are you today, Rick?
I'm doing great, Alex. It's awesome to be here and really looking forward to our discussion.
Well, me too. And we became aware that folks are interested in this, the moral choices related to blockchain and how blockchain could tie in with morality. And in Cardano in particular, one of Cardano's selling points is that this is a blockchain with a set of values that they're working to espouse as they implement the blockchain. Now, of course, there are going to be folks that have made a ton of money on Cardano and people who are looking to get very rich by buying Cardano at a certain price and selling it when it goes up after everybody's caught on to it. And we understand that. There will also be banking activities on Cardano. This is a cryptocurrency. It's also true that the leaders of Cardano, the people who are well placed in the development scheme and who also work for the companies that support the nonprofit Cardano Foundation, have been very vocal about promoting certain kinds of values for Cardano. These include decentralization, meaning they're not looking for there to be a pope of Cardano or a particular leader. They want everybody to kind of be equal in the sight of the blockchain. And they also want to make sure that no single person, no single human being is in control. Another value that they've put out there is elevating the poor. So they've made it very clear that they're hoping to provide banking services to persons living in remote areas, remote countries, developing nations, so that they have access to funds that they can use to improve their lives. And in fact, the Cardano blockchain has been the one that's been most implemented in the developing world, particularly Africa and also in South and Central America. There are projects ongoing right now that we'll talk about a bit today that are seeking to accomplish these goals. And as you can imagine, this attracts lots of people to the Cardano project. So of course, you've got people that think the technology's great. They want to get involved with the next up and coming blockchain. They want to make lots of money. And I think we've talked about how we don't necessarily have a problem with that. It's also true that there's all these efforts to put forth a certain code of ethics, a certain code of morality, if you will. And for those of us who are Christians, these ideals sound very familiar. Feeding the poor, housing the poor, treating every person as equal, in the sight of God. These are things that are very familiar to Christians, and it raises a very interesting question about whether or not, something like Cardano could be a moral entity. And, and Rick, you already know I'm going to be posing some questions to you because I'm really not an expert in this area. I know that I love crypto. I love the blockchain technology and learning about it. I'm also not naive. I'm quite sure that it could be used for evil. Nor am I so naive to believe that something that just has a label on it that is associated with something positive necessarily means that it's positive. I'm not naive to that extent. It's also true that I have to admit I am fascinated by the potentially equalizing aspects, the power of this technology to bring first world benefits to third world folks is very appealing to me. As viewers of our channel know, I'm a big fan of the Compassion Christian Charity. So I have been sending money to Africa for a number of years now, probably going on 10 years now. And, sponsoring a child in Africa through the Compassion program. And Cardano would be putting something like that in a much more efficient way. in a way to reach even more people faster. So the power of this technology is very fascinating to me as someone who's been interested in hopefully, sharing God's bounty with the world. But a few things that I want to make sure people understand. Number one, the Cardano blockchain was not built by people who are openly Christian. I don't believe that there is a Christian foundation for the blockchain on the one hand. On the other hand, some of the ethics and morals that they propose in relation to the Cardano blockchain do sound consistent with Christian values. And so it really raises some interesting questions. And I'm curious about how you feel about it, Rick. The Cardano blockchain is not officially Christian. Could it still be a morally and ethically positive project?
Well, Alex, it does bring up a lot of interesting points, and there's a lot of different ways I could go with this. One thing I want to point out at first is that no currency or any kind of thing that we use for exchange is really inherently good or evil per se. And so it really all depends on how you go about using that currency. And so in the case of Cardano with ADA, that that cryptocurrency is not necessarily good or bad. It's how is it used. And so it's great that the people who are influencing Cardano and how it's developed are stating they want to use it for altruistic purposes to do good for others, and that's great. And so right off the bat, I would say that while obviously it's not inherently Christian, if it promotes values that are in line with Christian values, then that's a good thing. It's better than investing money in something that is decidedly not Christian or promotes things that are antithetical to Christian values. So that is the first point I would bring out with that, is that and also then none because there's no real currency that is either like I said, good or bad or evil in a sense, then we have to decide how are we going to work with it. It's all about the context, right? It's all about what are our intentions, what are we doing, what are we doing to make sure. It's just like promoting retailers or different vendors, people who do things that are decidedly anti-Christian, and go against Christian values. We generally, the Christian community does not want to support those kinds of organizations, because it's basically like shooting yourself in the foot. So that right away is just something you have to be aware of. Now, I will say this, that just as an aside, Amazon has a program that's called Amazon Smile, and you can go to the Amazon Smile website, and it functions exactly like Amazon. And my wife and I actually don't contribute on our account. We have another ministry that we use that we are it's connected through Amazon Smile, and so all of our purchases actually benefit this other ministry. And so it's something we do, and I would suggest that every Christian go to Amazon Smile, find some organization that you can feel good about supporting, whether it's a ministry or whatever it is, and go ahead and do that, because it doesn't cost you anything, and it doesn't really cost, it's certainly a good thing for them. So, there's always a way to take something that, even if in general you don't like that retailer, there might be a way to turn it around in that particular case. So that's just one example there.
Well, that's a really great example, Rick, and I'm glad you brought up this notion of supporting the positive programs. And unfortunately, it probably isn't just as simple as buying some Cardano, buying some ADA, because as I mentioned earlier, there will be a huge variety of projects on ADA. Some of them will be, very consistent with our values, and then some of them will probably be very unrelated. They may not be particularly negative, but there'll be some type of banking transfer protocol or something like that that isn't really directly pertinent to those things we think of as central to our practice as Christians. On the other side of that, though, for those things that there are a number of opportunities that will probably become available relatively quickly for Christians that are coming out on the Cardano blockchain. We've talked already on the channel about the project in Ethiopia, where they're going to be storing medical records and also education records, and also giving everybody in Ethiopia a wallet that they can save currency with, and even potentially borrow currency through that wallet. The electronic wallet will function the same way that we would use a bank account or any other way of saving money, which is very, very difficult to do in rural Ethiopia. There just simply are not the centralized structures that support that kind of activity. Cardano would be able to provide that for anybody with a smartphone. And that program is being rolled out as we speak. There's another program that I have to admit I'm quite excited about. It's called EMPOWA. That's EMPOWA. And the EMPOWA program is taking off in Mozambique. It's in its early stages. How it will work is that people can buy EMP tokens on the Cardano blockchain. Now, this is in the future. Please don't run out and try to buy EMP. It's not available yet. But Cardano has smart contracts now, and this EMPOWA program is well funded, and they are going to be rolling it out. And how it works is that EMPOWA will take the money from those token purchases, and they will use it to construct housing in Mozambique. And this will be modern housing with all the modern sanitation and features that people in the Western world take for granted. People in the developed world take it for granted. And this type of housing is not very common in Mozambique. And there's reasons for why it isn't. And it's that same reason I was referencing earlier with Ethiopia. Central banking is not very well developed in the country. There are 30 million people in Mozambique, and there are currently 600 mortgages. That's right, you heard me correctly, 600 for 30 million people. What the EMPOWA program will do is it will supply funding to create opportunities for people to obtain housing and begin a lease to own program where they'll be paying rent or paying a lease, but it's going to be much more like paying a mortgage. Meanwhile, the mortgage holders will be EMPOWA token holders. So EMPOWA will actually issue NFTs that can be purchased with EMPOWA tokens, and you can own a piece of a home that is providing shelter for someone in Africa and actually get paid part of the lease to own payment until the individual actually does come into full ownership of their home, at which point it belongs to them. So incredibly enough, there will actually be a profit motive for people in developed nations to buy these tokens, purchase these NFTs, which is essentially like buying somebody a house in Africa. And then there is some return on that investment, so that it's not just a straightforward, it's not just simply a charitable gift, but there's actually some payout for the token. Now, that's one of many different programs that are coming out, but it's certainly one of the ones that I thought was interesting. I do want to bring up this issue one more time, though, Rick. I've looked at EMPOWA. It looks very interesting. I don't think it is an explicitly Christian program. And you'll notice that it's not even 100% charitable. Now, I think it's also likely that it'll do a lot of good for a lot of people. But what is your opinion about programs that actually are very good, maybe including Amazon Smile? Maybe a lot of charitable giving, including to Christian organizations, gets done through Amazon Smile, but it isn't technically an identified Christian program. How do you feel about that? In other words, do I have to make sure it has the Christian stamp of approval on it before I think that I'm doing the right thing?
Well, Alex, in a straightforward way to say this, no, I don't believe so. I personally think that as Christians, we need to look at the landscape of what's going on in the world and recognize that certainly in the blockchain and cryptocurrency spaces, there may not be any truly Christian, things being developed at the moment. It just, again, that's the reason for this show, is so that Christians will adopt these technologies and start to influence the way they're developed and the direction that they're going to go in the future. At least, create a space where Christians can participate in these and know that they are working with, truly Christian organizations. But just because there's nothing necessarily out there at the moment doesn't mean we shouldn't start to get involved and even invested in these technologies. Otherwise, it'll just never happen, right? If no Christians ever get involved with it, then there's no chance for there to be truly Christian developments there. And so,
and can I share some of my vision for that? What I'm hoping is that as more Christians move into the space, they're looking for those programs that are more consistent with Christian values, things like Empower, things like the medical record system for the third world. And by the way, some of these could be quite profitable potentially, and I'm not trying to pretend that that's not an element here, but also just letting some of their values guide these programs so that more and more programs get built, not just on the Cardano blockchain, but other blockchains as well. In other words, I would love to see a high demand for programs that are providing services to the world that are consistent with our deepest values.
Well, that's for sure, Alex. And I would just say this, that the Bible never says that, it never really says that poverty is a virtue, right? It never says that we should give away all of our money and we should live on the least amount that we possibly can. It is okay to have wealth, to accumulate enough goods to be able to take care of yourself, your family, and then, of course, your community, your church, family, and that idea. The whole point is not to, give away everything you have to the point where you're impoverished. It's that you should be able to use your resources wisely, manage them well, increase them, and then do good in giving them away. I wanted to bring up Luke chapter 16. I'm not going to go through the whole parable, but the first parable that this chapter has, Jesus is talking about a rich man who had a manager who was dishonest, and the dishonest manager wasn't, doing a good job. He was basically probably taking more of the funds than he should have been. And so the rich man sat down with the manager and said, what's this I hear about you with my accounts? Get them straightened out because you're fired. And so he already knew he was fired, but he still had to, settle the accounts. And so he decided, he was shrewd, and he said, I'm too old to dig ditches. I can't really go back to physical labor, and I don't want to beg, and so he actually turned around and took the accounts and told each person, to basically discounted every one of them. Like one was 1,000 gallons of olive oil. He said, well, let's make it 800, right? Or if that was, I think it was 800, I don't remember the number, so don't put me here. This is bad, but whatever. He basically gave each person a discount. And the idea of the parable, what Jesus was saying was that the people of the world sometimes are more shrewd than the people of the light. And so he's saying, he wasn't necessarily saying that you should do things in a dishonest way, but the point was ultimately was that we should be sure to take care of other people in our lives, because then if we do fall on hard times, they will then help us as well. And so that's really the point here, is that we should always be thinking more, not so much about how much money can I make from this, but how can I do the most good, even if I am making money as well. And so that's really the way I look at it is it's okay to make money, but we should always have in our mind as well, that what can we do to benefit others? and that's
right.
when we do that, that's actually what God wants us to do. So, we don't have to be so concerned was, does this have a particular Christian stamp on it? Is it doing good for others? And those programs you're talking about seem to be really designed to create opportunities for people who, have been underserved for,
a very long time.
A very, very long time. And so how can we most effectively get them into, say a home, or be able to use systems that will give them a lot more in their life, that will empower them to do more. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that's a great idea. And, the fact that we may benefit from it is not necessarily bad either.
Right, right. If it happens, it happens. And that would just be another blessing. And Rick, that is a wonderful segue into my tip of the day. So by popular demand, I'm going to give a crypto tip every time we do a show. Full disclosure, neither one of us are financial advisors. This is not financial advice. And the other part of the full disclosure is that because I have never seen a good crypto program that I would ever recommend to somebody else that I haven't bought myself, I do own every crypto tip that I will discuss. So I want to be absolutely open about that. It's not because I want people to buy the crypto so that it'll go up. I'm in long-term to all these programs, and I personally pledge that I will not sell any of this token for at least 6 months after this broadcast. This is a long-term, all my holdings are long-term. I'm not a crypto trader, but I do own all the coins that I'll be talking about on the channel, just because I own a lot of different kind of coins. So that's the nature of this. And that's how we started this channel, is because I really am a crypto enthusiast. The coin I'd like to talk about for people to research and decide how they feel about it, as far as price action goes, obviously it's a crypto, so you have to think about looking at the chart and when you want to get in if you do choose to buy the token. But the token is called Audio. The program is called Audius, and it is very similar to a music streaming service like Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon Prime Music. But instead of it being a centralized entity, it is a distributed blockchain project. The real opportunity I see for Christians is, first of all, there's not a lot of Christian music on there right now. There are 8 million people who are now listening to their music over Audius, so there's a lot of adoption. I don't see a whole lot of Christian content on there. I'm actually hoping to change that a little bit myself. We'll see. The point is that if you buy a few tokens, you can get some status on the channel, on the music service, and they will promote your music for you. So I want to make a huge shout out to all you worship band members, to all you folks that are cutting devotional CDs. Maybe you're selling them, online. Maybe you're already listed on some other services. But if you own the rights to that music, you can upload it to Audius, buy some audio tokens, and the Audius platform will promote that music for you. And I would love to see more Christian content on this channel. It is also the case that within the last couple of weeks, some very, very big name pop artists, not Christians that I know of, have gotten onto this channel. They've gotten onto this Audius program. And I won't be surprised if soon a very big band will decide to be exclusively on Audius. And here's why. Because it's decentralized, almost all of the royalties that come from streaming will go directly to the artist. And so when other people are signing on and they want the benefits of listening to your music, the profits from that, almost all of it goes directly to the artist, because there's not a centralized organization that needs that money. So it's very, very fair to the artist. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for young and up and coming artists who are not well established. If you are a well-established artist, I encourage you to look at this also, because a lot of well-established artists are looking at Audius right now. So that's the tip of the day. Take a look at Audio and be blessed, everyone. Thank you so much for a terrific show, Rick.
Well, thank you, Alex. It's always wonderful to talk to you about these subjects, and I really do appreciate all of your good input. Thanks a lot. God bless.
You bet. God bless.